Walter Haynes had been married 43 years, and he still thought he knew what made Linda happy. The cherry jewelry box taking shape under his handplane was proof of that, or so he believed that cold November morning, radio playing low in his woodshop, space heater glowing orange against the chill. He'd forgotten his wallet at the hardware store. Simple mistake. Came back home to grab it. That's when he heard her voice from the kitchen, laughing in a way he didn't recognize. Speakerphone. He froze in the mudroom, one boot half off, laces dangling from his fingers. He can barely get out of his chair anymore, Craig. Linda's voice, bright with contempt. Too weak for me, honestly. I need a man who can still, silence. Then a man's voice, tinny through the speaker. Leave the papers where I told you, Wednesday. Walter stood there, bootlaces in his frozen hands, too numb to feel the cold seeping through his sock. Walter sat in his truck for 20 minutes, breath fogging the windshield. The engine ticked as it cooled. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Too weak for her. He'd built their first dining table. Rebuilt the transmission on her Buick twice. Last week, he'd replaced the porch railing she'd been asking about for months. Cut the wood, sanded it smooth, stained it the color she liked. His hands were steady, always had been. But she'd said it. And some man named Craig had answered. What papers? Walter started the truck. Drove back to the hardware store. Bought the fence staples he'd originally gone for. Came home at the normal time. Linda was in the kitchen, making lunch, humming something he almost recognized. There you are, she said, kissing his cheek. Sandwiches in 5 minutes. He nodded. Washed his hands at the sink. The water was too hot, but he didn't adjust it. They ate ham and Swiss at the table he'd built in 1985. Linda talked about the garden club's Christmas social, about Diane's new curtains, about nothing that mattered. Walter chewed and swallowed and made the sounds he was supposed to make. That night, after she'd gone to bed, he sat at the kitchen table with their laptop. Took him 10 minutes of hunt and peck typing to log into the credit card account. He'd never checked it before. Linda handled the bills, always had. The statement loaded. Walter scrolled down, stopped. Marriott Courtyard, 2 towns over. 287, date October 15th. That was the weekend Linda had stayed overnight at Diane's, or said she had. He kept scrolling. Best Western, Holiday Inn, Hampton Inn, 18 months of charges, $3,200 worth, at hotels he'd never heard her mention. His hands found the phone, the old flip phone he'd refused to upgrade. Took 3 tries to get a clear photo of the screen, fingers fumbling the buttons. Headlights swept across the kitchen window. Walter closed the laptop, pocketed the phone, stood at the sink with a glass of water he didn't want. The back door opened. Linda came in with grocery bags he hadn't known she was getting. You're still up? She set the bags on the counter. I thought you'd be asleep by now. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd have some water. She studied him for a moment, 2 seconds that felt like an hour, then smiled. Well, don't stay up too late. You know how cranky you get without your rest. She kissed him goodnight. Her lips were cold. Friday evening, Walter suggested the Legion fish fry. They went every other week, had for years. Linda agreed easily, changed into the blue sweater he'd always liked. The Legion Hall smelled like fried cod and old wood paneling. Vinyl booths, fluorescent lights, a mounted bass on the wall that Gary Thornton had caught in '94. Pastor Mel was there with his wife. The Kowalskis, Vernon Price from next door, sitting alone at the bar with a grain belt. Linda looped her arm through Walter's as they walked to their booth. She was warm against his side, laughing at something Marlene Peterson said about the weather. Still got the best marriage in town, you two, Pastor Mel called out as they passed. Linda squeezed Walter's hand. 43 years and counting. Walter ordered the cod basket. So did Linda. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that comes from decades of knowing someone. Except Walter didn't know her. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. On the drive home, Linda hummed along with the radio. She reached over and held his hand across the bench seat. Her palm was warm, real. Which version is true, he thought. This one? Or the one on the phone with Craig? At home, Walter brushed his teeth, washed his face, climbed into bed beside the woman he'd shared it with for 43 years. She was reading a paperback romance, the kind she got from the library. He reached for her, first time in months. His hand on her shoulder, gentle. Linda set down her book, looked at him. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. I'm tired tonight, honey. She patted his hand. Maybe tomorrow? She turned off her lamp, rolled onto her side away from him. Walter lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Linda's breathing deepened. Sleep, or a good imitation of it. The bedside clock read 11:47, then 12:33, then 1:18. Outside, a mourning dove called. First one of the season. Walter listened to it until the sound of his own heartbeat was louder than the bird. By the time gray dawn showed at the window, he still hadn't slept. and he still didn't know what papers Linda and Craig were talking about. But he was going to find out. Saturday morning, Walter woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. He hadn't slept, just closed his eyes and waited for dawn. Now Linda was humming in the kitchen, the same tune from yesterday, cheerful as sunshine. He found her at the stove, still in her robe, hair pinned up the way she did on weekends. "Morning, love." She kissed his forehead, handed him coffee. 2 sugars, splash of cream. Perfect, like always. "Thought I'd make you a real breakfast. You've been looking thin." Walter wasn't thin. Hadn't lost a pound in 5 years, but he said I appreciate it. They ate scrambled eggs and bacon at the kitchen table. Linda asked about his plans for the day. He said he'd work in the shop, maybe fix the fence by the back 40. She nodded, said she needed to run errands, visit Diane. "Which sister?" Walter asked. Diane was her only sister, but he wanted to see her face when she answered. "Diane? Why?" No hesitation. Not even a blink. She was good at this. "No reason. Just checking." Linda stood, cleared the plates, kissed the top of his head. "I'll be back by dinner. Love you." Love you too." The words came out automatically. Muscle memory. 43 years of saying them every morning, every night, every time one of them left the house. He wondered when they'd stopped meaning anything. Linda's car disappeared down the gravel drive at 9:15. By 9:17, Walter was standing over her purse on the kitchen counter. This was a line. He knew it was a line. Married people didn't go through each other's things. That was trust, and trust was what held a marriage together. Except the trust was already gone, wasn't it? She'd killed it. He was just looking at the body. Walter opened the purse, wallet, lipstick, grocery store receipts, a roll of breath mints. Her phone, the regular one, not the second phone he suspected existed. Then, folded small at the bottom, a receipt from Giovanni's. The Italian place in Carlton, 40 minutes away, 2 entrees, appetizers, a bottle of wine, 127. Date, last Tuesday. Tuesday, the night Linda said she had book club. Walter photographed the receipt with his flip phone, put everything back exactly as he'd found it. The purse looked untouched. He walked to his shop and didn't turn on the lights. Just sat on his work stool in the cold, looking at nothing. Over the next week, Walter searched when Linda was out. He was methodical about it. Machinist's precision applied to detective work. Never moved anything out of place. Never left evidence he'd been looking. He found hotel shampoo bottles in her gym bag. A phone charger for a model she didn't own. Perfume he'd never bought her. Expensive stuff in a black bottle. Tuesday evening, he went next door for cribbage with Vernon. They'd played every Tuesday for 10 years, usually in Vernon's kitchen with the radio on and a couple of beers between them. Vernon dealt the cards, his weathered hands still quick despite the arthritis. He was 72, 5 years older than Walter, a retired postal worker who'd lost his wife Ellen to cancer 5 years back. Good man, quiet. The kind of neighbor who helped you move a couch and didn't expect anything but a thank you. 15-2, 15-4, and a pair of 6, Vernon said, laying down his cards. They played in silence for a while. Then Vernon said, casual as commenting on the weather, "Saw Craig Benson's Mercedes in your driveway last Thursday. Thought he was dropping something off for Linda." Walter's hand froze mid-play. "What time?" "Around 2, maybe 2:30. I was getting the mail. 2 o'clock, Thursday." Walter had been at the hardware store, buying the lumber for the porch railing. Linda had been home alone. Or not alone. "He's her boss," Walter said, keeping his voice level. "Real estate office. Probably just work stuff." Vernon nodded, played his next card. "None of my business, Walt." They finished the game without talking about it again. But when Walter stood to leave, Vernon's eyes met his, just for a second. And in that second, Walter understood. Vernon knew, had known for a while. Was waiting to see if Walter would ask. Walter didn't ask. He drove home, his hands tight on the wheel. Linda's car was already in the driveway, kitchen light on, warm against the November dark. Inside, she was stirring something on the stove. Soup, from the smell of it. She smiled when he came in. "How was Vernon?" "Fine, same as always." "That's nice. Dinner's almost ready." They ate vegetable soup and crackers. Linda talked about her day, a difficult client at the real estate office, where she worked part-time as a receptionist. Some drama with the substitute teaching schedule at the middle school. Normal conversation. Marriage conversation. Walter's spoon scraped the bottom of his bowl. The sound was too loud in the quiet kitchen. That night, Linda went up to bed first. Walter stayed downstairs, told her he wanted to watch the news. Instead, he sat in the dark living room, thinking about Thursday at 2 o'clock, about Craig Benson's Mercedes, about Vernon's eyes saying, "I know, and I'm sorry." At midnight, Walter climbed the stairs, opened the bedroom door as quietly as he could. Linda was asleep, or pretending to be, her back to his side of the bed, breathing slow and steady. Walter got undressed in the dark, slid under the covers. The sheets were cold where Linda wasn't. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about what papers Craig had told her to leave or where or why Wednesday mattered. But mostly he tried not to think about how good Linda was at lying, how easily the words came, how she'd looked him right in the eye over breakfast and said, "Love you," like she meant it. Maybe she had meant it, maybe that was the worst part. The week before Thanksgiving, Linda changed. Monday, she made pot roast the way his mother used to. Carrots and potatoes soft enough to cut with a fork, gravy thick and dark. She sat across from him and asked about his day, actually listened to his answers. Tuesday, she brought it up over coffee. "What would you think about renewing our vows for our 45th anniversary next year?" Walter looked up from his cup. "Renewing our vows?" "I know it sounds silly, but 45 years, Walter. That's something." She reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. "I just want you to know how much you mean to me." Her hand was warm. Her eyes were clear. If she was lying, Walter couldn't see it. "Let me think about it," he said. Wednesday night, she initiated. First time since the fish fry, first time in months before that. Afterwards, she fell asleep with her head on his shoulder, her breath soft against his neck. Walter stared at the ceiling and wondered if he'd imagined everything. The phone call, the credit cards, Craig's Mercedes, maybe he was the one losing his mind. Maybe Linda was right to worry about his memory, even if she hadn't said it out loud yet. Except she had said it, he'd heard her. Too weak for me? Thursday, Linda suggested they get a Christmas tree early this year. Maybe cut one from the back 40, make a day of it like they used to. Friday, she kissed him goodbye before leaving for work and said, "Sir, I love you, Walter Haynes. Don't you forget it." He wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. Sarah called Sunday evening. She and Josh were driving up from Pennsylvania for Thanksgiving, bringing the kids. Kaylee was 8 now. Ryan was 5. Good kids. Walter hadn't seen them since summer. "Can't wait, Dad," Sarah said. "The kids have been asking about you." Linda was already making lists, planning the menu. Turkey, stuffing, her famous pumpkin pie. She was excited in a way Walter hadn't seen in years. Bustling around the kitchen, humming, pulling out the good china. Maybe this was real. Maybe whatever had been wrong was over now. Maybe. Wednesday night, Sarah's minivan pulled into the driveway. Kaylee burst out before it had fully stopped, running across the gravel. "Grandpa!" Walter caught her, lifted her up despite the arthritis in his back. She smelled like kids' shampoo and fruit snacks. "There's my girl," he said. Ryan was shyer, hiding behind Josh's legs until Walter knelt down and offered a handshake. "Good to see you, Ryan. You get taller every time." That got a smile. Linda had dinner waiting, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread, but the house felt full again, alive. Sarah talked about her accounting job, Josh about coaching Ryan's soccer team. The kids colored at the table while the adults drank coffee. This was what marriage was supposed to be. Family, warmth, a table full of people you loved. Walter almost forgot why his chest had been tight for 3 weeks. Thanksgiving Day, the kitchen smelled like butter and sage and roasting turkey. Linda was in her element, orchestrating everything, flour on her apron, cheeks flushed from the oven heat. Sarah helped with the sides, while Kaylee helped by stealing marshmallows from the sweet potato dish. They sat down at 2 o'clock. Walter carved the turkey, still knew how to do that, his hands steady with the knife, and passed plates around. The table was crowded, elbows bumping, Ryan's booster seat squeaking. "Should we say grace?" Linda asked, reaching for Walter's hand on one side, Sarah's on the other. They bowed their heads. Pastor Mel's prayer from last Sunday, the one about gratitude and family. Walter said amen with everyone else. The meal was perfect. The conversation was easy. Sarah told a story about a difficult client. Josh made the kids laugh with a terrible joke. Linda kept getting up to refill water glasses, bringing more rolls, playing hostess like she was born to it. After dinner, Walter cleared plates while the others moved to the living room. He could hear Kaylee's laugh, the TV turning on for the football game, the comfortable sounds of family settling in. He was scraping gravy into the trash when he heard Sarah's voice from the hallway. She was on her phone, talking to someone, probably a friend back home. "Yeah, we made it safe." "Oh, dinner was great. Mom outdid herself." A pause, then quieter. "Well, Mom's pretty worried about Dad. He forgot Kaylee's birthday last month, and she said he left the stove on twice last week. She's thinking maybe it's time to talk to him about, getting evaluated." Walter stood at the sink, plate in his hand, gravy dripping. Kaylee's birthday was in April, 4 months away. The stove worked fine. He'd checked it that morning, lit all 4 burners to make sure. Hadn't left anything on in months, maybe years. His hands, the ones that were supposedly too shaky, too old, too weak, tightened on the plate until his knuckles went white. Sarah came around the corner, stopped when she saw him. "Oh, Dad, I didn't know you were there." "Just doing dishes," Walter said. His voice came out normal. Amazing, what you could do when you had to. Sarah hesitated. Dad, we should talk. Later, maybe. After Josh takes the kids to bed. Sure, honey, whenever you want. She smiled, relieved, like he'd just made things easier, and went back to the living room. Walter set the plate in the sink very carefully, walked to the stove, all 4 burners off like they'd been all day. He opened the oven door, cooling now, nothing inside. Then, because something made him look, he checked behind the stove. There were papers wedged back there, tight against the wall, folded. Walter pulled them out, unfolded them under the kitchen light. Reverse mortgage application, his name, his property, his signature at the bottom. Except the signature was wrong. The loop on the J in his middle name. He always looped it. This one was printed, straight line. Someone had forged his name. Footsteps on the stairs. Walter snapped a photo with his phone, hands shaking now for real. Folded the papers, shoved them back behind the stove, turned to the sink just as Sarah entered the kitchen. Dad, you okay? Fine. He ran water over the plate he'd already rinsed. Just finishing up. Listen, about what I said on the phone. It's okay, Sarah. Your mom's worried. I get it. It's not that you're... we just want to make sure you're... I said it's okay. She touched his arm. We love you, Dad. Love you too, sweetheart. She went back to the living room. Walter stood at the sink, water running over his hands, cold now because he'd forgotten to add hot. They weren't just stealing his wife. They were stealing his mind, his memory, his ability to be trusted with his own life. And they'd gotten his daughter to help. Sarah's family left Friday morning, hugs all around, promises to come back for Christmas. Kaylee made Walter promise to build her a dollhouse. A big one, Grandpa, with stairs, he promised. Watched their minivan disappear down the driveway. Waved until they were gone. Then he went to his shop and didn't come out until dark. December settled in cold, the kind of cold that got into your bones and stayed there. Walter kept the space heater running in his shop, but it barely made a dent. He could see his breath most mornings. Every day was the same. Coffee at 5. Breakfast with Linda. She'd talk, he'd nod, both of them playing their parts. Then the shop until noon. Lunch. Back to the shop. Dinner, TV, bed. And every night, after Linda's breathing went deep and steady, Walter would slip out to the shop and spread the evidence across his workbench. Credit card photos, hotel receipts. The forged mortgage application. He'd pulled it out again after Sarah left, photographed every page, put it back exactly where he'd found it. 18 months of lies, laid out under a single work light. He could call a lawyer, Mitchell & Sons, the billboard on Route 9, divorce attorneys, asset protection. The number was in his phone now. He'd saved it 2 weeks ago but never pressed call. He could confront Linda, just show her the evidence, ask her to explain. Except she'd lie. She was good at lying. Or worse, she'd tell the truth and he'd have to hear it all out loud. Every hotel room, every afternoon with Craig, every time she'd kissed Walter's cheek and meant nothing by it, he could tell Sarah. But Sarah already thought he was losing his mind. Linda had done her groundwork there, planted the seeds, forgot Kaylee's birthday, left the stove on, all lies. But Sarah believed them. He could do nothing, just let it happen. Linda would get power of attorney, eventually. She was working toward it. He could see that now. The forged mortgage was step 1. Once she had legal control, she'd put him somewhere. A home, probably. Someplace clean and safe where old men went to die slowly while their families sold their property and spent their money. Every option felt like losing, so Walter did nothing. Just sat in his cold shop with the evidence spread out and the space heater humming and his breath fogging the air. 3rd week of December, his phone buzzed during breakfast. Sarah. Hey, Dad, have you thought about that evaluation? Mom really thinks it would give everyone peace of mind. Linda was watching him over her coffee cup. Walter set the phone face down. Sarah's asking about Christmas plans. Oh, what did you tell her? That we'd love to have them. And Linda smiled. Perfect. I'll start planning the menu. She cleared his plate, kissed the top of his head, hummed her way to the sink. Walter's phone buzzed again. He didn't look at it. Saturday evening, 3rd weekend of December. Walter was in the shop. The evidence spread out again like it could tell him something new if he just stared at it long enough. He heard footsteps in the snow outside. Heavy boots, not Linda's. The door opened without a knock. Vernon stood there with 2 coffee thermoses, snow on his shoulders. How long you gonna sit with this, Walt? Walter looked up, started to say something. Sit with what? I'm fine. Mind your own business. But the lies wouldn't come. Vernon stepped inside, closed the door against the cold, set 1 thermos on the workbench, kept the other, sat on the extra stool without being invited. Silence. 2 old men in a cold shop, breath fogging between them. Finally, Vernon said, My Ellen, before the cancer. Walter waited. She had an affair with our accountant. Guy named Paul Siebert did our taxes, managed our retirement accounts. Vernon unscrewed his thermos, took a slow sip. Found out after she died. Paul sent flowers to the funeral. His wife didn't come. That's when I knew. Vernon, let me finish. Vernon set down the coffee. I knew something was wrong the last 2 years. She was different, distant. I told myself it was the cancer, the chemo, the fear, but it wasn't. It was guilt. I'm sorry. Don't be. Thing is, Walt, I stayed quiet, didn't ask, didn't push. Told myself I was being patient, being understanding. She was dying. What right did I have to make it harder? Vernon looked at the evidence spread across Walter's workbench. Didn't seem surprised to see it. Found out after the funeral that Paul had been stealing from us. $70,000 over 5 years. Ellen knew. Didn't tell me because she was in on it, or scared of him, or both. Doesn't matter now. Jesus, Vernon. Stayed quiet for her memory. Thought that was the right thing. Let her die perfect. Keep her that way. Vernon's jaw tightened. Regretted it every single day since. Not for her memory, for mine. Man's got to be able to look himself in the mirror, Walt. Vernon pulled a manila folder from inside his coat, set it on the workbench next to Walter's photos. Been keeping tabs. Figured you'd need this when you were ready. Walter opened the folder. Photographs. Time-stamped, dated. Craig's Mercedes in the driveway, October 14th, 2:17 p.m., November 3rd, 1:45 p.m. A dozen more. Credit reports. Property surveys showing Walter's 40 acres bordered the new strip mall development on Route 9. Documents proving Craig Benson's development company was 3 months from bankruptcy without that land. At the bottom, paperclip to the last page, a business card, Mitchell & Sons, attorneys at law. Called him last month, Vernon said. Told him you might need help. He's expecting you'll contact him. Walter stared at the folder. At Vernon's, months of documentation, his careful evidence gathering, his quiet protection. Why? Walter's voice came out rough. Because somebody should have done it for me. Vernon stood, zipped his coat. Whatever you decide, I'm here. But Walt, silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's just surrender. Vernon's hand landed on Walter's shoulder, squeezed once. Then he was gone. The door clicking shut behind him. Boot prints in the snow leading back through the trees. Walter sat alone with 2 folders now, his evidence and Vernon's, proof that he wasn't crazy, wasn't confused, wasn't imagining things. Proof that his wife and her boss were trying to steal everything he had. And proof that at least one person saw it. One person knew. Outside, headlights swept the driveway. Linda was home. Linda called out from the house. Walter, you out there? He slid Vernon's folder under a tarp, wiped his face with his sleeve. Yeah, be right in. She was in the kitchen when he entered, setting grocery bags on the counter. She smiled at him, warm, genuine, the smile that had made him fall in love with her in 1981. Thought I'd make chili tomorrow. Sound good? Sounds fine. She studied his face. You okay? You look tired. Just cold. Shop's freezing. Well, come warm up. I'll make hot chocolate. And she did. With marshmallows, the way she knew he liked it. They sat at the kitchen table, mugs between them, and talked about the weather, about Christmas shopping, about nothing that mattered. That night, Linda went to bed at 10. Walter waited until 11:30, then slipped back to the shop, retrieved Vernon's folder, photographed every page with his flip phone. Took him 45 minutes, his cold fingers fumbling the buttons, put everything back exactly as he'd found it. Then he stood there in the dark shop, space heater clicking, and made a decision. Monday morning, he'd call the lawyer, but Sunday came first. Walter woke early, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with the phone book, looked up Mitchell & Sons. The ad said, protecting your assets, protecting your future. He stared at the number until the coffee went cold. Linda came downstairs in her bathrobe, hair messy from sleep. She poured herself coffee, sat across from him. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. She reached across the table, covered his hand. Walter, are you okay? And don't say fine. I'm your wife. I know when something's wrong. The words almost came out. Everything. The phone call, the credit cards, Craig's Mercedes, the forged papers. He could say it all right now. Ask her to explain. Give her a chance. But he looked at her face, her concerned eyes, her gentle touch. And he knew she'd lie. Or worse, she'd tell the truth, and it would destroy what little was left. I'm okay, Walter said. Just getting old, thinking about things. Linda squeezed his hand. We're getting old together. That's what matters. She kissed his forehead, went to start breakfast. Walter sat there, her warmth still on his skin, and hated himself a little for being too weak to confront her. No, not weak, strategic. There was a difference. Monday, 2 p.m. Walter sat in Mitchell's office, wood paneling, law books on shelves, a window overlooking Main Street. Mitchell was 65, gray hair, kind eyes, the sort of man who'd seen 1,000 bad marriages and somehow still believed in people. Walter spread the evidence across the desk. Photos, receipts, Vernon's documentation, the forged mortgage application. Mitchell reviewed it all in silence. Took him 15 minutes. When he looked up, his face was grim. Mr. Haynes, this is attempted fraud, potentially elder abuse. I don't want to press charges. Sir, I just want her gone, and I want my property protected. Mitchell nodded slowly. The good news, the house and land are solely in your name. Premarital inheritance, correct? My father's. Left it to me in '88. Then she can't touch it. This forged mortgage. Mitchell tapped the papers. Is worthless. The bank would catch it in processing. But the fact that she tried, I know what it means. Mitchell pulled a folder from his desk drawer, opened it. Your neighbor Vernon called me 3 weeks ago, asked what options you'd have. I took the liberty of drafting documents just in case. He slid papers across the desk. Divorce petition. Already filled out. Walter's name at the top. Blank signature line at the bottom. You don't have to sign today, but when you're ready. Walter picked up the pen. Mitchell blinked. Mr. Haynes, you should take time to. I've had 3 weeks. Walter signed his name. The loop on the J perfect, exactly the way he'd been writing it for 67 years. What happens now? We file. Serve her the papers. You'll need witnesses present when we do. Family is best. Prevents false claims later. Family meeting, Walter said. I can arrange that. Mitchell studied him. This is going to be hard, Mr. Haynes. It's already hard. This just makes it honest. Wednesday morning, Walter called Sarah. Hey, Dad, what's up? Need you and Josh here this weekend. Saturday, 10 o'clock. Oh, is this about Christmas plans? This is about the truth. Be here. Silence. Then, Dad, is this about your memory? Because Mom said, be here, Sarah. 10 o'clock Saturday. He hung up before she could argue. Linda was in the doorway when he turned around. What was that about? Family meeting, Saturday. Her face went careful. What kind of family meeting? Estate planning. Things we should have discussed years ago. Walter, if this is about what Sarah said at Thanksgiving, you don't need to be evaluated. I was just worried, that's all. It's not about that. Then what's it about? Walter met her eyes, held them. Guess we'll find out Saturday. Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe. Or calculation. Okay, she said, Saturday. Friday evening, Linda barely touched her dinner. She kept getting up, refilling water, adjusting the thermostat, checking her phone. Nervous energy rolling off her in waves. You sure everything's okay? She asked for the third time. With the meeting tomorrow? Everything's fine. Because if you need to talk about anything... Linda. Walter set down his fork. It's fine. She nodded, picked at her food. At 8 o'clock, she went upstairs. Walter heard water running. She was taking a bath, something she only did when stressed. He cleaned the kitchen, washed the dishes, dried them, put them away in the cabinets he'd installed 30 years ago, looked around at the kitchen he'd built, in the house his father had built, on the land that had been in his family for 3 generations, all his, every inch of it. And she'd tried to take it. That night, Walter lay in bed beside Linda. She wasn't asleep. Her breathing was wrong, too controlled. They were both awake, both pretending, both knowing. Finally, she whispered, Walter, are you leaving me? 10 seconds of silence. The clock ticked. The furnace hummed. Go to sleep, Linda. Her breath caught, just a little hitch, barely audible. But he heard it. She knew. Had known for a while, probably. The same way he'd known about Craig. Married people always know. They just choose whether to acknowledge it. Walter closed his eyes. Didn't sleep, just waited for Saturday morning. Saturday, 9:45 a.m. Sarah and Josh arrived early, both of them tense. No kids this time. They'd left them with Josh's parents. Dad. Sarah hugged him, held on a little too long. What's going on? Let's sit down. Dining room. They gathered at the table. The one Walter had built in 1985, oak with breadboard ends, hand-cut joinery, 40 years of family dinners, birthday cakes, homework sessions, the place where life happened. Linda positioned herself between Sarah and Walter. Blocking move, like she was already defending territory. Walter sat at the head of the table. Set 3 manila folders in front of him. Linda's eyes fixed on those folders. She didn't recognize them, couldn't since Vernon had compiled them, but she recognized threat when she saw it. So, Sarah said, trying for cheerful. Dad, if this is about your will, I brought some financial documents. As your accountant, I can help. This isn't about my will. Then what? This is about the truth. Walter opened the first folder. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. Nobody interrupts. Nobody leaves. When I'm done, you can speak. He slid the first document across the table. Hotel receipt, $287 Marriott Courtyard. Let's start with November of last year. Linda's hand reached for Sarah's. Sarah didn't take it. Josh leaned back, arms crossed. His face said, "Finally." The radiator ticked. The old house settled. Outside, a crow called. Walter began. Walter spoke for 23 minutes. He did it the way he'd done everything his whole life. Methodical, precise, no wasted words. Started with the speakerphone call. In November, the credit card statement. 18 months of hotel charges, $3,200. Slid receipts across the table, one by one. Sarah picked them up, studied them with her accountant's eye. Her face went from confused to careful to something harder. Vernon's documentation. Walter pushed across the photographs. Craig Benson's Mercedes. In our driveway. October 14th, 2:17 p.m. November 3rd, 1:45 p.m. A dozen more. Each time-stamped, dated, precise. Linda's face had gone pale. "Walter, I can explain." I said nobody interrupts. His voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Linda's mouth closed. Walter continued. Property surveys showing his 40 acres bordered the strip mall development. Craig Benson's company financials. Vernon had gotten those somehow, probably through old postal service connections. 3 months from bankruptcy without that land. They weren't just having an affair. Walter's hands were steady on the table. They were planning to steal my property. He saved the worst for last. The forged mortgage application. Slid it directly to Sarah. "You're an accountant. Look at the signature." Sarah studied it. Her professional training kicked in. Walter could see it happen, the way her eyes sharpened, the way she held the paper up to the light. "The J is wrong." Her voice came out flat. "You loop yours. This is printed straight." She looked at her mother. "Mom?" Linda's composure cracked. "Sarah, honey, you don't understand. Did you forge Dad's signature? It's not that simple. Yes or no? Mom, did you forge his signature on a mortgage application?" Silence. Linda's fingers found her necklace, twisted the clasp, released it, twisted it again. "He's old," Linda said finally. "He doesn't understand money anymore." Craig said we could help him, make sure he was taken care of. "By stealing his house?" Sarah's voice rose. "By putting him in a home so you could sell his land?" "We weren't going to—" "That's exactly what you were going to do." Sarah stood, the chair scraping loud against the floor. "You've been calling me for months, telling me Dad was losing his mind. Forgot birthdays, left the stove on." He did forget. Kaylee's birthday is in April. "It hasn't happened yet." Sarah's hands were shaking. "You made me think my father was incompetent, so I'd help you steal from him." Linda's tears came then. Real ones, Walter thought. Or real enough. "I didn't know what else to do. He's old, I needed security. Craig promised you $200,000 from Dad's land." Walter's voice cut through her crying. "That's what you needed. Not security, money." Linda's face crumpled. She reached for Sarah again. Sarah stepped back. Josh spoke for the first time. I knew something was wrong. His voice was quiet but steady. "At Thanksgiving, all those stories about Walter being confused, but he fixed that porch railing with perfect joints. Built Kaylee's dollhouse plans on a napkin, measurements exact. His hands were steady the whole time." And he looked at Walter. "Should have said something. I'm sorry." Walter nodded. "You're saying it now. That's what matters." He stood, put on his coat, the heavy canvas one, the one he'd had for 15 years. "You've got until Friday to be out, Linda. Take your clothes, your car, your personal things. Everything else stays." "Walter, please. I filed for divorce Wednesday. Lawyer has all the evidence." He buttoned his coat slowly, deliberately. "You try to fight this, I'll press fraud charges. Elder abuse. Whatever Mitchell says will stick." He walked toward the door. "Dad, wait." Sarah's voice cracked. Walter turned, looked at his daughter, saw the tears on her face, the horror in her eyes. "You believed her," he said quietly. "About my memory, my confusion. You were going to have me evaluated, declared incompetent." "I didn't know." "I know you didn't. That's what makes it hurt." He opened the door. A man stood on the porch, young guy in a cheap suit, envelope in his hand. "Linda Haynes?" Linda stood frozen at the table. "Yes?" "You've been served." He handed her the envelope. "Divorce papers?" Walter walked past him, down the porch steps, got in his truck, started the engine. Behind him, through the kitchen window, he could see Sarah screaming at Linda, Josh holding Sarah back. Linda on the phone, calling Craig probably, warning him. Walter drove to Vernon's house, parked, walked to the porch. Vernon was already sitting there with 2 beers, like he'd known Walter would come. Walter sat in the second chair, took the beer, didn't open it, just held the cold bottle and stared at nothing. "You did it," Vernon said. "Yeah." "How'd it go?" "About like you'd expect?" They sat in silence for a long time. The winter sun was pale and weak. A crow landed on Vernon's fence, watched them, flew away. "Sarah?" Vernon asked finally. "Believes me. Saw the forged signature." Walter's voice was rough. "Hates her mother now. Not sure that's better. She's young. She'll figure it out. I lost my daughter's respect once. Just got it back by destroying her family." Vernon was quiet for a moment. Then, "You didn't destroy it. Linda did. You just turned on the lights." Walter opened the beer, took a long drink. It was cheap stuff, light beer, the kind you bought by the case. Tasted like the best thing he'd ever had. 43 years, he said. Over. "Yeah." "House is gonna be quiet." "Yeah." "Think I can do it? Live alone?" Vernon looked at him. "You've been alone for 18 months, Walt. You just didn't know it." They sat until the sun dropped behind the trees and the cold got too deep to ignore. Then Vernon stood. "You staying here tonight?" "No." Walter stood too. "My house. Always been my house. And she might not leave quiet. Then she can explain to Tom Hackett why she's trespassing." And Walter drove home. Linda's car was already gone. Fast exit, probably to her sister Diane's place. The house was dark, empty, his. He walked through every room. The kitchen, where she'd made 43 years of dinners. The living room, where they'd watch TV every night. The bedroom, where they'd slept side by side until sleeping beside her felt like sleeping next to a stranger. All his now, every inch. He sat at the kitchen table he'd built, put his head in his hands, and for the first time since November, Walter Haynes let himself cry. Sunday morning, Sheriff Tom Hackett knocked on Walter's door. Tom was 58, third-generation sheriff. His grandfather had worked construction with Walter's father back in the 60s. Good man, fair man. The kind who'd give you a warning on a broken taillight instead of a ticket, but wouldn't think twice about arresting his own brother if the law required it. "Walt." Tom took off his hat. "Got a minute?" They sat at the kitchen table. Walter made coffee. 2 cups, black for both of them. Old habits. Tom pulled out a notepad. "Need to take a statement. Linda filed a complaint yesterday. Harassment, coercion. Her lawyer wants it on record." "She's got a lawyer already?" "Craig Benson's lawyer, actually. Guy named Peterson from Carlton. Real piece of work." Tom clicked his pen. "But between you and me, Walt, Peterson's going to earn every penny on this one. I've seen your documentation." "Mitchell sent it over?" "Yesterday afternoon. Forwarded it to the county fraud division." Tom's face was grim. "Forged signature on a mortgage application. That's fraud, Walt. Elder abuse, potentially. And Craig Benson's in deeper than Linda. Conspiracy to commit fraud, extortion, maybe more. I don't want Linda in jail. That's more mercy than most men would give. She's still Sarah's mother, Kaylee's grandmother. They don't need to visit her in prison." Tom wrote something in his notepad. "Craig's another story. You pressing charges there?" "Whatever you and Mitchell think is right." Tom nodded, kept writing. "Walk me through it. Start with November." Walter told it again. Shorter this time, just the facts, the speakerphone call, the investigation, Vernon's documentation, the forged papers. Tom took notes, asked clarifying questions, didn't interrupt. When Walter finished, Tom closed his notebook. "I'm sorry, Walt. 43 years, that's not nothing." "No, it's not. You gonna be okay?" Walter looked at the empty kitchen. Linda's coffee mug was still in the cabinet. The blue one with flowers she'd bought at the church rummage sale. He'd have to get rid of it eventually, or maybe he'd keep it. Reminder that even pretty things could be poison. "I'll manage," Walter said. Monday morning, Sarah called. Walter almost didn't answer. Let it ring 4 times before he picked up. "Dad?" Her voice was rough, like she'd been crying. "Can I come by?" "When?" "Now, if that's okay. Josh is watching the kids." "Come on." She arrived 20 minutes later, drove fast from the sound of her tires on the gravel. Came in without knocking, like she used to when she was a kid. Walter was at the kitchen table with coffee. Sarah sat across from him. No coffee for her, just sat there with her hands folded, looking at them instead of him. "I'm sorry," she said. Walter waited. "I believed her. About your memory, your confusion. She'd call every week with new stories. You forgot appointments, repeated yourself, got lost driving to the hardware store." Sarah's voice cracked. "I'm an accountant. I'm trained to verify information. And I didn't. I just believed my mother. She's good at lying. That's not an excuse." "No, but it's an explanation." Sarah looked up, tears on her face. "I was going to have you evaluated, Dad. Declared incompetent. I had the forms printed. I was going to bring them at Christmas." Walter's chest went tight. He'd suspected, but hearing it out loud was different. "Did you sign them?" "No, I kept hesitating. Something felt wrong. Josh said, she wiped her eyes. Josh said, a man who can design a dollhouse on a napkin with perfect measurements isn't losing his mind. I should have listened. He's a good man, Josh. He says he's proud of you, that you did what had to be done, that it took guts. Walter sipped his coffee. It had gone cold. Your mother's still your mother. You don't have to choose sides. She tried to steal from you, Dad. She forged your signature. She turned me against you. Sarah's voice was sharp now, angry. I've already chosen. Sarah, no, you don't get to make me forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She stood, paced to the window. I keep thinking about Thanksgiving, how happy she seemed, how perfect everything was. And it was all performance, all of it. Some of it was real. How do you know? Walter didn't have an answer for that. Sarah turned from the window. I'm coming back next weekend. With the kids. We'll stay the whole week if you want. Help you, I don't know, figure things out. You don't have to do that. I know, I want to. And she crossed back to the table, bent down, kissed his forehead. I love you, Dad. And I'm sorry I forgot that for a while. After she left, Walter sat at the empty table for a long time. His daughter believed him, finally. That should have felt like victory. Mostly it just felt like surviving. Friday evening, 2 weeks after the confrontation. Walter drove to the Legion Fish Fry with Vernon. You sure about this? Vernon asked. Whole town knows by now. That's why I'm going. They walked in together. The usual crowd. Pastor Mel and his wife, the Kowalskis, Marlene Peterson, a dozen others. Conversations didn't exactly stop when Walter entered, but they paused, shifted. People glanced up, then back to their plates. Walter got in line for food, ordered the cod basket, coleslaw, coffee, same as always. Pastor Mel approached while Walter was paying. Walter, good to see you. Pastor. Mel didn't mention Linda, didn't mention the divorce. Just, how you holding up? Day by day? That's all any of us can do. Mel squeezed his shoulder. You need anything? You call. Walter carried his tray to a booth. Vernon slid in across from him. Marlene stopped by their table. She was 70-something, sharp as a tack. Her sister had gone through a nasty divorce in the 90s. Walter, I heard about your trouble. I'm sorry. Appreciate it, Marlene. My sister went through similar. Took guts to stand up for herself. Took you guts to stand up for yourself, too. She patted his hand. You need anything, you let me know. Will do. Throughout the evening, people treated him normal. Nobody asked for details. Nobody avoided him. Nobody whispered. Small towns knew when to be quiet, when to support. This was support, showing up, eating together, pretending everything was fine until it actually was. On the drive home, Vernon said, That wasn't so bad. No, it wasn't. Town's on your side. Seems like. Vernon pulled into Walter's driveway. You want company? I can come in, watch the game. I'm good, but thanks. Walter went inside. The house was cold. He'd turned the heat down to save money, living alone. He turned it back up, made himself a sandwich, ate it standing at the counter. The answering machine blinked red. One message. He pressed play. Dad, it's Sarah. Her voice was steadier now, stronger. The kids made you something. Can we bring it by tomorrow? Josh wants to come too. He says he's proud of you. We all are. A pause. Her voice cracked. I'm proud of you, Dad. Call me back. The message ended. Walter played it again. His daughter's voice. I'm proud of you. 43 years of marriage, gone. His wife, gone. The life he'd built, demolished. But his daughter believed him, respected him, was proud of him. Walter saved the message, turned off the lights, went to bed, and for the first time in 3 months, he slept through the night. Late January, Walter sat in Mitchell's office for the last time. Divorce finalized. So Mitchell slid papers across the desk. No contest from Linda. She signed everything. What did she get? Her personal possessions, her car, and nothing else. Prenup was solid. You drafted it smart back in 1981. Plus the fraud evidence meant she had zero leverage. And Craig? Mitchell smiled, the first genuine smile Walter had seen from him. Craig Benson's real estate license suspended pending investigation. Development deal collapsed when investors pulled out. He's facing fraud charges. Probably settled to avoid trial, but he's done in this county. Linda? Living with her sister. Still teaching. School board decided it was a personal matter, not professional misconduct. She's lucky you didn't press charges. Walter signed the final document. His signature, the loop on the J perfect and precise. How you feeling? Mitchell asked. Walter looked at the divorce decree. Official, legal, 43 years, ended with a signature. Like I can breathe again. Walking to his truck, Walter saw Linda's car in the grocery store parking lot. Could go in, might see her. They'd have to talk, eventually. Small town. couldn't avoid each other forever. He stood by his truck, key in hand, then got in, drove to the store on the other side of town. Not ready yet, maybe not ever. Didn't need closure from her, already had it from himself. February was the coldest month. Not just the weather, though that was brutal. Temperatures dropping below zero, wind that cut through your coat like you weren't wearing one. But the emptiness, too. The quiet. Walter's new routine: coffee at 5 alone, breakfast at 6 alone, shop work until noon, lunch alone. Afternoon in the shop or fixing things around the property that didn't really need fixing. Dinner at 6, alone, TV until 9. Bed. The house was too quiet. He started leaving the radio on all day, just for the sound of human voices. Talk radio mostly. Didn't matter what they talked about. Politics, sports, gardening tips. Just needed to hear someone speaking. Cooking for one was the hardest part. He'd make a pot roast anyway, the way his mother taught him, the way he'd been making it for 40 years, and then eat it for 4 days straight. Pot roast Monday, pot roast sandwiches, Tuesday, pot roast hash Wednesday, whatever was left Thursday. On Friday, he'd throw the rest away and start over with something else. The nights were worst. He'd gotten used to the sound of someone else breathing. 43 years of another person in the bed. You didn't just forget that. His body would search while he was half asleep, hand reaching across the sheets, finding nothing but cold mattress. He'd wake up at 3 a.m., disoriented, walk through the dark house, kitchen, living room, back to bedroom. Sometimes he'd cry. Sometimes he'd be angry, throw a coffee mug once, his mug not hers, watched it shatter against the floor, and then cleaned it up, every piece. Sometimes he was just okay. Sat in his shop, planed wood, listened to the radio, breathed. He finished the jewelry box for Kaylee. Cherry and maple inlay, her name in cursive across the lid. Sanded it until it was smooth as glass. Applied 6 coats of finish, rubbing each one down with steel wool. When he was done, he held it up to the light. Perfect joints, clean lines, beautiful work. His hands were still steady, still competent, still his. Linda had been wrong about that, at least. Saturday morning, 3rd week of February, knock on the door, Sarah, Josh, and the kids. Kaylee holding something behind her back, grinning. Grandpa. She ran to him. He bent down. His back complained, but he ignored it. What have you got there, sweetheart? She brought out a construction paper card, folded in half. Giant letters in crayon, Grandpa the Brave. Inside a drawing, stick figure man with a crown, stars around his head. Mom said you were brave, Kaylee said, like a king. Walter's eyes stung. He blinked hard, just like a grandpa who loves you very much. He hugged her. She smelled like kid shampoo and crayons and innocence. The world hadn't broken her yet. Maybe it never would, if he did his job right. Ryan hung back, shy as always. But when Walter stood up, Ryan said, "Can we see the shop, Grandpa?" "Course you can." He took them out back. Showed them the tools on the pegboard, the hand planes, the wood stacked along the wall. Kaylee wanted to touch everything. Ryan was more careful, asking questions about what each tool did. "Can you teach me?" Ryan asked. "How to build stuff?" "Sure can." "Your mom and Josh stay for lunch. We'll start today." After lunch, grilled cheese, tomato soup, nothing fancy. Josh took the kids outside to throw snowballs. Sarah stayed at the kitchen table with Walter. "We need to talk," she said. Walter poured more coffee. Sat down. "Okay. About Mom." Sarah's hands wrapped around her mug. "I haven't talked to her since the confrontation. She's called 60 times. Left messages, sent letters. That's between you two." "No, it's not, because she's asking about you." Sarah looked up. "Wants to know if you're okay? If you're eating? If you're lonely?" "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I haven't answered." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I keep thinking about everything she did, the lies, the forgery, turning me against you. And part of me hates her." "She's still your mother." "I know. That's the problem." Sarah's voice cracked. "How do I love someone who tried to destroy you?" Walter thought about that, about the pot roast Linda used to make. The way she'd kissed his forehead every morning for 43 years. The vow renewal she'd suggested. Probably meaning it, in that moment, even while planning to betray him. "People aren't all one thing," he said finally. "Your mother did terrible things. She's also the woman who sat up with you when you had colic, taught you to ride a bike, helped you with your college applications. That doesn't excuse... No, it doesn't excuse anything. But you don't have to choose between hating her completely or forgiving her completely. You can be angry and still love her. You can refuse to trust her and still want her okay." Sarah wiped her eyes. "How are you so calm about this?" "I'm not. I'm just tired." Walter sipped his coffee. "I was angry for 3 months straight. Wore me out. Now I'm just... done. With the anger, with her, with all of it. Do you still love her? Walter looked out the window. Josh and the kids were building a snowman. Ryan was packing snow. Kaylee was trying to lift the middle section. Josh was helping without making it obvious he was helping. I love who I thought she was, Walter said. Not sure that person ever existed. Sarah reached across the table, took his hand. I'm sorry, Dad. For everything, for believing her, for almost— her voice broke. For almost helping her. You didn't know. I should have. I'm your daughter. I should have trusted you. You do now. That's what matters. Josh came back inside with the kids, all of them pink-cheeked and snow-covered. Kaylee was chattering about the snowman they'd built. He needs a carrot nose, Grandpa. Do you have a carrot? Walter found a carrot. They went back outside, all of them, and Ryan placed it carefully in the snowman's face. Kaylee added rocks for eyes and mouth. Josh found an old hat in the garage. Sarah took a picture on her phone. There, perfect. They stood around the snowman, breath fogging in the cold February air. A family. Smaller than it used to be, broken in places, but still a family. That night, after they'd left, Walter sat in his bedroom, looked at himself in the mirror, same face, same lines around the eyes, same gray hair, same jaw that had never been particularly strong. But different eyes, clearer somehow, like something had been cleaned away. He'd lost his wife, his marriage, 43 years of his life, gone. But he'd kept himself, his competence, his dignity, his ability to look in the mirror and recognize the man looking back. Was it worth it? Walter thought about waking up reaching for Linda, about eating pot roast alone for 4 days, about the house being too quiet, too cold, too empty. Then he thought about the forged signature, about Sarah almost having him declared incompetent, about living the rest of his life being slowly erased while everyone pretended it wasn't happening. Yeah, he said to his reflection. It was worth it. He got into bed. The sheets were cold. The house was quiet. He was alone. But he was also free. And tonight, that was enough. Saturday morning, first week of March, Walter woke up naturally. No alarm, no nightmare, just his body deciding it was done sleeping. Sun was hitting the bedroom window. First time since December. The icicles hanging from the eaves were dripping, steady tap, tap, tap against the porch roof below. Snow melting, spring coming. Walter got up, made coffee, carried it out to the porch. Vernon was already there, sitting in the second chair with 2 thermoses. Morning, Walt. Morning. How'd you know I'd be up? Saw the light, figured you'd want company. They sat together, watching the snow melt off the back 40, brown earth appearing in patches, the creek running high with snow melt, sound of it audible even from the porch. A crow landed on the fence post. Bold Thing hopped closer, watching them with one black eye. Divorce finalized last week, Walter said. Vernon nodded. How's that feel? Like signing a death certificate for something already dead. Craig? Settled. Paying restitution. License suspended. He's done. And Linda? Still at Diane's. Still teaching. Still— Linda, I guess. Vernon sipped his coffee. And you? Walter thought about that. About the 3 months since November. The investigation, the confrontation, the aftermath. The slow hard work of learning to be alone. I sleep through the night sometimes, he said. Don't reach for her anymore. Most nights. That's progress. House is mine. Quiet, but mine. That's something. Yeah, it is. The crow flew off. More crows in the distance calling to each other. Spring birds, coming back. Walter watched the sun move across his 40 acres. His land. His father's before him. Still his, still standing. Think I'll plant the garden this year, he said. Vernon raised an eyebrow. Linda always did that. Yeah, time I learned. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that comes from real friendship, not obligation. Vernon had saved him, not by doing it for him, but by giving him the tools to save himself. You ever think about dating again? Vernon asked. Walter smiled. Sometimes. Then I remember how bad I am at knowing who people really are. You knew. You just didn't want to believe. That worse or better? Different. Vernon finished his coffee. But you're not broken, Walt. Just careful now. Maybe someday, when I'm ready to trust again. Walter looked at the melting snow, the emerging earth, the promise of spring. If I'm ever ready, you will be. Takes time. Time. That's all it was. Just time and work and waking up every morning and choosing to keep going. The sun broke through the clouds, full light now, warm on Walter's face. Spring was coming. The garden would need planting. Life would keep moving forward whether he was ready or not. But today, sitting on his porch with his friend, watching his land wake up from winter, today was enough. March deepened. The snow was mostly gone now, just patches in the shadows where the sun didn't reach. The creek ran high and loud, swollen with snowmelt. The ground was soft, muddy, but you could smell it. That wet earth smell that meant winter was finally letting go. Walter stood at the edge of his garden plot. Linda had always planted it. Tomatoes, green beans, cucumbers, zucchini that grew faster than they could eat it. He'd built the raised beds for her 10 years ago. Cedar planks that were weathered now, but still solid. This year, he'd planted himself. He'd bought seeds at the hardware store, heirloom tomatoes, the kind Linda liked, green beans, some lettuce, a pack of sunflower seeds because Kaylee had asked if he could grow the tall flowers. Vernon walked over from his place, carrying 2 beers even though it was barely noon. Starting early? Walter asked. It's Saturday. That's allowed. Vernon handed him a beer. You know what you're doing with that garden? Not a clue. YouTube's got videos. I'll figure it out. Can't be harder than rebuilding a transmission. They stood together, looking at the empty beds. The promise of something growing there. Not yet, but soon. Linda called me yesterday, Vernon said. Walter's hand tightened on the beer bottle. Yeah? Asked how you were doing, if you were eating okay, if the house was falling apart without her. What did you tell her? That you were fine, that you didn't need her checking up. Vernon took a long drink. She cried, said she'd made mistakes, asked if there was any chance you'd talk to her. What did you say? That it wasn't my place to say. Vernon looked at him. Is there any chance? Walter thought about it, really thought about it. Linda crying, Linda sorry, Linda wanting to talk. No, he said finally. Not now, maybe not ever. Fair enough. They drank their beers, watched a pair of crows fight over something in the field. The sun was warm on Walter's face, first real warmth since November. You coming to fish fry tonight? Vernon asked. Wasn't planning on it. Marlene asked about you. Said her friend Carol's been widowed 2 years. Nice woman. Taught 3rd grade before she retired. Walter smiled, despite himself. I appreciate it, but I'm not ready for that. She's not asking you to marry her, just eat fish together. Still not ready. Vernon nodded. Didn't push. That was the good thing about Vernon. He knew when to talk and when to shut up. They finished their beers. Vernon collected the bottles. I'll see you Tuesday. Cribbage. I'll bring the beer this time. After Vernon left, Walter got his shovel from the shop, started turning over the soil in the garden beds. It was hard work. Harder than he remembered, or maybe he was just older now. Felt it more. His back complained. His hands cramped on the shovel handle. But the soil was good, dark and rich. His father had worked this land. His grandfather before that. Now it was his turn again. He worked until his shirt was soaked with sweat and his back was screaming. Then he went inside, drank water, came back out and worked some more. By the time the sun was setting, he'd turned over all 3 beds, ready for planting once the last frost had passed. He stood looking at his work, dirt under his fingernails, back aching, hands sore. It felt good. Sunday afternoon, Sarah called. Hey, Dad, just checking in. I'm good. Turned over the garden beds yesterday. You're planting this year? Figured I should learn. A silence on the line. Then, Mom used to love that garden. I know. Is this because of her? Or, it's because I like tomatoes, Walter said. And because Kaylee wants sunflowers. Sarah laughed. The first real laugh he'd heard from her in months. Fair enough. Hey, Josh wants to bring the kids up next weekend. Teach Ryan some woodworking, if that's still okay? More than okay. Dad? Her voice changed, quieter. Are you happy? Walter looked around his kitchen, empty coffee cup on the table, radio playing low. House quiet, but not silent anymore. He'd gotten used to it, the space, the solitude. It wasn't loneliness, not quite. Just aloneness, and there was a difference. I'm getting there, he said. Good, that's good. After they hung up, Walter made himself dinner. Pork chops, mashed potatoes, green beans from a can. Ate it at the table, alone, while the radio talked about the weather forecast. Warm front coming. Spring really settling in now. He washed his plate, dried it, put it away, looked at himself in the reflection of the kitchen window. The sun was setting behind him, turning the glass into a dark mirror. He could see his face, tired, lined, older than he felt most days. But he recognized it. That was the thing. He knew who that man was. That man had been married 43 years, had built a life, raised a daughter, worked hard, been faithful, had been lied to, betrayed, nearly erased, and had fought back, quietly, methodically, with evidence and lawyers and the truth. That man had stood up for himself when it would have been easier to stay silent. That man had survived. Walter touched the window glass, cold against his fingertips. Not bad, he said to his reflection, for an old guy who's supposedly too weak. He turned off the kitchen light, went to bed. Tomorrow he'd go to the hardware store, buy the fertilizer for the garden beds, maybe stop at the diner for lunch, see Pastor Mel if he was there, live his life, his own life. Not the one someone else had planned for him. The bedroom was cold, the bed was empty, he was alone. But he was also free and whole and himself again. Spring was coming, the garden would grow, life would continue. And for the first time since November, Walter Haynes believed he'd be okay. Not happy. Not healed, not whole, but okay. And okay was enough to start with. Walter sat on his porch that evening, March air still cool but softer now, carrying the promise of warmth to come. Vernon's light glowed through the trees, steady, constant, a reminder that some friendships prove themselves in silence. He thought about silence, how he'd confused it with strength for so long. His father's generation, they'd been taught to endure, to keep problems private, to handle things without complaint. Real men didn't air their troubles. Real men kept their heads down and their mouths shut. But silence had nearly cost him everything. It wasn't until he broke that silence, spoke the truth, laid out the evidence, refused to be erased, that he'd gotten himself back. And the truth had cost him his marriage, 43 years. The comfortable lie of thinking he'd known the woman he woke up beside. But lies cost more. They cost you yourself, piece by piece, until you couldn't recognize your own face in the mirror. The jewelry box sat on the porch rail, Kaylee's card tucked inside it, the construction paper soft from her small hands. Grandpa the Brave. He'd never felt brave. Just tired. Just determined. Just unwilling to disappear while he was still breathing. Coffee had gone cold in his cup. He set it down, looked out across the 40 acres, his land, his father's legacy, still his. The garden beds turned, ready for planting, the fence needing mending come summer, the barn needing paint, all his to tend, his to maintain, his to pass down someday to Sarah, to Kaylee, to whoever came after. Not all victories came with celebration. Some came quiet, like spring, gradual, cold giving way to warmth, snow melting to reveal the earth beneath. You couldn't rush it. You just had to wait and work and trust that life kept moving forward even when you weren't sure where it was going. Walter stood, picked up his coffee cup. The sun had set fully now, stars beginning to show in the darkening sky. He walked inside, turned on the kitchen light. His house, his life, his choice. Tomorrow he'd plant the garden. Tonight he'd sleep, and that, just that, was enough.